Hello there. Nice job being on time, guys. This is great. Let me pull our slides up here. As you're coming in, go ahead and put in the chat, how has the New Year, New Me challenge been for you so far? You enjoyed it? Have you got any new takeaways? Discovered anything new about yourself? Been enjoying the journaling prompts so far? Have I stretched you into areas that maybe you weren't expecting? No, maybe not. Nobody wants to share? Had a good experience so far? All right, glad you're enjoying it. Interesting journaling prompts. They're definitely, right? Pretty deep. Yeah, found decisions you've been avoiding making. That's good. Journaling prompts have been 80. Very good. Well, today we are going to go even deeper. Let's see, what time is it? 5:02. I give it a couple more minutes, see if anybody else logs on. Has everybody watched or did you attend the last workshop? Anybody here not watched or attended that? It's okay if you did, but we will be building a little bit on some of the things we got into on that last workshop. Has everybody been able to make it, watched it? Wonderful. Make sure you have your pen and paper handy. Got some good questions. Help us reflect. Lori, that's all right. You can watch it, catch up to where we're at. Yeah, Dan, I'm sure if you journal regularly, so maybe bring up some new topics that you wouldn't normally get into. Let's go ahead and get started. And if anybody else logs in, they can catch up to where we're at. So today we are going to go deeper than we did on the last one. I'll just be completely upfront about that. And one of the things is my intention is that you go deeper than maybe if you wanted to in the past. I want this to be something that really you can uncover some maybe deep root beliefs or even emotions that are at the root of these limiting blocks that you have in your head. And the only way you're going to be able to successfully go there is to go deep into some of these, maybe the darker thoughts that we're holding on to, and start unpacking them so that they're no longer affecting our life. So are you guys willing and ready to go deep? I want this to be a safe space. Not that you need to be sharing this negative stuff that you're pulling out of your head, but I want just this to be a safe space for you to just do this for yourself, because your future self will thank you for removing lots of these limiting beliefs. So are you guys ready to go deep so that we can remove these blocks and make some incredible things happen in 2024? What do you think? Ready to dive into it? Yes, no, maybe, a little afraid. Sec. All right, let's do it. So where I want us to start out today is I want to start by talking about our internal thermostat, which what I mean by this is our self-worth works a lot like a thermostat. In our house, you have a thermostat on the wall, you set it to a temperature, and the furnace or the air conditioner will get it to that temperature, right? If I open the door, like right now it's freezing cold outside, if I open the door, leave it open for a while, a bunch of cold air comes in. Once I close it, eventually the furnace will kick on and get it back to the temperature that I have it set at. And our self-worth is that it works similarly. If I believe, for example, that I'm only worth 50 grand a year, then if I ever start earning more than that, I'm going to be uncomfortable. And all of a sudden then I will start doing things to just get rid of the money because I'm not comfortable with it. Maybe you've seen people who they have a business that all of a sudden takes off to this next level, and they're earning all this money, but they can't seem to hold on to it. Or there's actually that 70% of lottery winners end up broke within 7 years, right? Their internal thermostat is not adjusted to receive this huge amount of money that they get. Or even the flip is true. If you believe you're worth 100 grand a year and all of a sudden something happens and maybe you lose your job or the market that you're in just isn't doing as well. And all of a sudden you go to a while where you're earning less than what you're used to. Well, now there's also a disconnect between your external world and the internal world of where your internal thermostat is at. And now all of a sudden you work really hard to get yourself back to that point. And this isn't just true for our income and the money that we earn, but also our relationships, our weight, our fun and travel, like all the different areas of life, right? Like if I don't believe that I'm worthy of a good relationship, I'm not going to get in one. And if I do, I will self-sabotage it, right? Because there's a disconnect between my external world and what my internal thermostat, quote unquote, is set to. Or obviously, if you're in a bad relationship and it's lower than what your internal thermostat is at, then you would obviously get out of the relationship. Maybe you've seen this with your weight. You work really hard to lose all this weight, but there's still this disconnect between what you believe that you're worth and then you put the weight right back on. Does this make sense to you guys? Internal thermostat, the whole analogy here, because this we're going to build on this as we're going through to ultimately figure out where our internal thermostat is at and how we're going to raise it. Yes, no, kind of makes sense. Following me so far? Because as we are setting our goals, if we don't address our limiting beliefs, we don't address where internal thermostat is at, we'll self-sabotage ourselves as we're working towards them. It's kind of like if you're driving your car with your foot on the brake, right? It's going to take a lot of effort and you're not going to make it very far. And ultimately, what I want us to build on so we can start understanding what's going on internally is that our outer world is a reflection of our inner world. So I can use the outer world that I'm experiencing as feedback of what's going on internally, right? If I internally do not feel like I'm worth a certain amount of money, then I'm not going to have it. Or if I internally don't feel like I'm worthy of a certain level of relationship, I'm not going to have it. If I don't believe I'm worthy of owning certain things or having certain types of vacations or trips, I'm not going to have it. So we need to figure out where we're at. So we're going to start with some questions today to figure out where is our internal thermostat low. And we can use our current life for feedback on this. So I'm going to start a timer for, what do I have up there? I think 2 minutes. If we need more time, I'll add it to there. But over the next 2 minutes, I want you to journal on where in your life are you not performing as you want? Where in your life do you self-sabotage yourself? Are there certain actions that you know can make a really big difference, but you keep procrastinating them, right? Because that might reflect, it's like, I know this could take me to a new income bracket or give me a new career, or it can take me to a new relationship. But if you're avoiding it, it's probably because your internal thermostat isn't quite there yet. So I'm going to start a timer for 2 minutes, and let's go ahead and reflect on this to see where we might have an internal thermostat that is set too low. And once you're done with these prompts, go ahead and put done in the chat. If we need more time, I can always add it up here. All right, done. Looks like most of you guys done. Could use a little bit more time. Done. Reflect on where might we have an internal thermostat. And why this is really good to notice, and we're going to talk about today, is I think lots of times people flip the internal thermostat versus the external life, where they think once I change my external life, then my internal thermostat will go up, right? If I improve my external self, then my internal self will improve. And the opposite is the case, right? If our external life goes up higher than our internal world, then we just self-sabotage it to bring it back to where it is. We need to raise our internal world, and then the external will follow. Let me show you kind of a representation of what I mean here. I think that lots of people, I'm going to call this our self-worth gap, where here's our current life over on the left, and there's this new life that we want to have. And we view this gap as an external gap. Like once I have all these external things, then I'll have this new life. And once I have this new life, then I will be enough. For example, once I earn 100 grand, then I will become enough, or then I will be enough. However, the reality is this is not an external gap. This is actually an internal gap. We have the current you, and we have the new you who accepts themselves for where they are. And the reality is once I accept that I'm enough, then I will earn the 100 grand, whatever it is you're working to. Once I accept the way I am right now, then I can go make the changes to my weight or to my body that I want. Once I accept that I am enough as a person, then I can have the healthy relationship that I really desire. If we try and just change the external, then our internal isn't there yet. So we're just going to self-sabotage it and get in the way. And we need to accept where we're currently at. We need to start becoming the new you who accepts where they're at, and then you can make the changes in your external world. We need to realize that we're already enough, right? We're already wanted or loved or smart enough. We're just already enough. Is one of the things that I really want us to help tackle with our workshop today. So I know this probably sounds like, okay, Jason, this is a great little analogy you're giving us, but there is science that is going to back this up. There are lots of different books. Some of the books that are going to talk a lot about this that I've really enjoyed are Dr. Joe Dispenza's books. I don't know if anybody in here has followed any of his stuff, but he's a scientist who does all sorts of studies around this. Probably one of my favorite ones that gets into this is this book called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. But how this works, like actually in our body, is you first have to understand our relationship between our feelings and our thoughts. So there's a direct relationship between our feelings and our thoughts. If I feel a certain way, I will create thoughts that match it. If I start to feel angry, the type of thoughts that my mind creates will become angry thoughts. And when I start to have angry thoughts, I get angrier. I feel angrier. And it starts this cycle, right? And it starts to spiral us down. Or I could have thoughts that create feelings, right? If I start to think about some sort of worries, I will start to feel worried. And when I start to feel worried, I start to think more thoughts that are worrying, right? You might have had, maybe you went and saw like a scary movie and it completely freaked you out, right? So you have this feeling of being afraid. And then you come home or you're going to bed, and all of a sudden, because of this feeling of fear, all of a sudden I start having these frightening thoughts like, did I hear something downstairs? Right? And once I start having these frightening thoughts, I start to feel more afraid. And when I feel more afraid, I have thoughts that are more frightening, right? Like, I think I hear someone in the living room. And before I know it, this spiral starts to spiral me into believing like there's somebody downstairs in our house, right? Does this make sense? Direct relationship to our thoughts or feelings. Or maybe you were driving in on your way to work and you started to think about a certain customer or coworker and who just really makes you mad. And just by thinking about them, even though you haven't seen them yet today, you make yourself mad, right? Our thoughts and our feelings, they directly cause each other. Yeah, some of those scary movies, they stay with you. But why I bring this up? Because ultimately what happens is our feelings are regulated by our hormones, our endorphins, the different chemicals that are within our body. And if I start feeling a certain way regularly, it becomes a habit, right? We talked on one of our earlier workshops how our thoughts become habits. Like if every single time I get into my car, I start thinking about a coworker who makes me mad, then it will become a habit for my body when I get in the car in the morning to start firing off the hormones and neurotransmitters that are actually going to make me experience the feeling of being angry. And what happens is when we've done this for an extended period of time, because our feelings come from certain chemicals within our body, right? Drugs are certain chemicals you can put in your body, and it'll also kind of mimic the natural hormones that we create. Similarly, though, we will get addicted to our own actual biological feelings. If I'm constantly feeling afraid, my body gets addicted to that emotion, where just like any other emotion, it will take me more of that emotion to give me the same kick, right? Like if I'm always worried, all of a sudden now I'm going to need to find bigger, worser things to worry about to give me that same kick of worry. And if I don't have any worry in my life, if I was addicted to worry, I will seek it out. Okay, you might have experienced people who are like this, who they're just worrying all the time. And even when they're in an environment or situation where there's nothing to worry about, they will seek it out. Okay. And I know for me, this might sound like, okay, that makes sense with stress or with worry, but I know for me, probably when I started to realize this back a number of years ago, one of the feelings that I was addicted to for, I think, a lot of my life, and definitely still just peeling back the layers to work through, is just this feeling of being inadequate, right? At some point when I was younger, I had this feeling of inadequacy and I became addicted to it. And probably as a younger high school, college Jason, I used to try and combat this feeling of inadequacy. I thought that being popular and getting tons of friends, specifically like partying a whole bunch, would somehow prove that I was enough, right? If I threw the biggest parties or did the wildest things, then I would be quote unquote enough, right? Obviously, very broken, immature logic. But then once I moved into the real world, it was like, I need to make a bunch of money. If I can make a bunch of money, then I will be enough. And if I ever started to earn a bunch of money, I would just spend it all. I would get rid of it because if I had a bunch of money, well, then quote unquote, I would be enough. But I then would go searching for something to make me feel not enough again. And it would start this nasty cycle of constantly trying to prove that I'm enough, working hard to achieve something, and then finding another reason why, nope, I can't actually be enough because if I don't have this emotion of not being enough, now, I feel uncomfortable because it's been something that I've had my whole life, which turns into a very nasty cycle that will just never end, right? And positive thinking will help with this, but ultimately we need to fix like the root problem of, okay, our body has developed this addiction to a certain emotion. I need to recognize it and then create a much better addiction to being addicted to feeling like you're enough or feeling excited, something that's going to move you in a positive direction. Are you guys following me on this? I know this is probably a little bit deeper than you might have expected to get into when you signed up for just a journaling challenge. I agree. This is incredibly fascinating. There is a lot of research behind this, and it is really helpful to dive into it. I know it has been in my own life. But what I want us to do is I want us to try and recognize what are some of the negative habits that we might be addicted to or just be in the habit of doing. So I'm going to put a timer up here for 3 minutes, and I want you to try and identify what are some of the negative feelings you experience regularly. There's a whole bunch of questions here. You don't have to necessarily answer all of these, but I just want you to use them to try and pull some of this negative stuff out so we can ultimately try and find what's like the root underlying problem that's underneath these. So some questions to think about, what are some of your negative feelings you experience regularly? What are some of the negative feelings you are constantly trying to avoid? Maybe like the feeling of being unwanted, unloved, inadequate, lonely, judgment, guilt. Maybe you have a big feeling of regret or anger. I know this was a journaling prompt the other day that can really help is what am I trying to prove to others? And when you think about that, that can uncover these broken beliefs we have underlying, right? If I'm constantly trying to prove to others that I'm worthy of respect, that's a sign that underneath somewhere, I have this broken belief that says I'm not worthy of respect, right? And that's why I'm trying to constantly go out and prove that I'm worthy of respect. Or if you have, I'm trying to prove that I'm enough or that I'm desirable, right? We need to figure these things out. So that can be a pretty eye-opening question. What are some of my limiting beliefs? What are the negative thoughts that I hear in my head on a regular basis? What beliefs have held me back from following my dreams? How do I present myself to others versus how do I actually feel about myself inside? What about myself am I trying to hide from others? What do I believe others can do, but I can't? What am I afraid of? So again, we're gonna push deep here, but I'm gonna put a timer up for 3 minutes and go ahead and put done in the chat. I mean, really, this is probably something you could journal way longer on than 3 minutes, so we might add more time. But once you feel like you've got a pretty good grasp of pulling lots of this negative stuff out of your head, go ahead and put done there in the chat. Yes, Lori, I agree. It's kind of frightening to think you can be addicted to bad emotions, but it's also at the same time easy to see how it's true within our own lives. I know at least for my life, it has been. Eric, that's good that you can just keep adding more and more. I feel like, I know for me, I feel like it's refreshing to just keep pulling all this stuff out of my head. I'm going to put some more time up here. Let's do another 2.5 minutes. All right, if you guys are finishing up, I would recommend coming back to these two. If you want, screenshot this. I know that I've had lots of journal prompts coming up this week that were about this. We're kind of braided in with some of the recognize your negative beliefs, also create what our dream life wants to look like. But this is really good stuff to go deep on. And it's just going to be an onion to keep peeling back the layers. Because I think probably one of the first times I started to realize that I had lots of these internal issues that needed to be dealt with was, I started Goal Crazy and I worked super hard to launch this, to design this planner. But it wasn't until 6 months after I launched it, I finally sat down to do my QuickBooks, right? And get actually like profit and loss and see how the numbers of the business looked. And then it was after 6 months I did it, and I saw that I had sold, which was a good thing, I'd sold over $100,000 worth of these planners in my first 6 months. And that was exciting. It's like I could see in my QuickBooks like the whole history of all these deposits going into my bank account and how there had been over 6 figures going in there. However, yes, it should be awesome. However, I had like no money. Even it was like somehow, no matter how much money was coming in, I was spending more than that. I had less money then than I did 6 months prior when I had launched the business. And it was like, what happened? I was 23 or something. I was like pretty young at the time. Obviously, there was more money than I'd ever been used to having coming into my bank account. Like, Jason, how did you just let this all slide through your fingers and have less than what I started with? And that's probably what started to kick me into like, okay, I need to figure out what's really going on with me because this should be working. And it's like if I started to make money and money started to just build up taller in my bank account, I would go, there was a disconnect, right? I had this just addiction to being inadequate. And it's like, well, I need to go do something with it, right? I don't deserve this money. I'm enjoying this work too much. Like I shouldn't be allowed to just make this money and have it. And I was getting rid of it. And even though I was getting rid of it and wanting this money, it's like on the flip side, if maybe I got up in the morning and I checked my sales and it's like, hey, it's in the morning, I've already sold 15 planners or something, and I'm all excited. I'm on this great trajectory for the day. And then like 2 hours goes by, I check my sales again, and I haven't gotten a single planner sale. And it's like, even though it's only been 2 hours, right? And I've had this great morning so far, it's like it would just poke at this feeling of inadequacy, where immediately it's like, it would just take me into complete freak out mode, right? Like, okay, now I'm clearly inadequate because my business is failing. It's going to just start to tank from here. Everyone's going to see that I failed, right? I go start tinkering with the ads, blow a bunch of money on ads that are a terrible decision, right? And it just formed this terrible cycle until I could finally recognize like, okay, I have this deep-rooted addiction to feeling inadequate, and I need to work on this. And once I could get rid of that, everything else got easier, right? Once I started to change my internal life, then my external life could change. But until I dealt with it and accepted that, like, I am enough right now, I'm allowed to earn some money, or I'm allowed to follow through on the things that I want, then I could actually go do it. So hopefully you can maybe someone there relate to that story or can help you kind of get it where I'm wanting us to go with these exercises. But I think for me, like most of these negative emotions I would feel on a regular basis, whether it was stress, if I had any sort of down day of sales, I would get stressed, like I'm behind, right? My competitors are selling more planners than me. I would have fear. My business is about to tank. I would feel inadequate. I would feel judged, even though nobody else was watching my sales. It was like everybody probably sees that I've had a slow time of sales, right? And it was like, but it was all rooted because of this deep addiction to inadequacy, and just these external things would poke at it. So I bring this up because I want you to try and recognize if there was going to be one main negative emotion that you think that you have an addiction or a habit of creating within yourself that maybe triggers all the other ones, which one would it be? I've got a list of some here. It doesn't have to be one that's on this list. Maybe it's something else. And I know it's probably hard to try and identify one because there's probably lots, right? Maybe it's stress or worry or fear or guilt, but there's probably one dominating one. Like if I ever felt inadequate, I would immediately start to worry that others would see it. I would fear others would see it. I would feel stressed and overwhelmed because I was quote unquote behind. I would feel angry at myself because it's like, oh, I must have made a bad decision, right? And it would just spiral me out of control when anything would poke at this sensitive addiction I had to feeling inadequate. So I want you to reflect on this. Not that you have to nail down the perfect thing, and right, there's a bunch of stuff going on in our head that in the future you can keep working on. But for the sake of going forward, I want you to try and identify what would be one of the negative feelings that you have had that if you look back on your life, it's like, wow, this has been at the root of a lot of my decisions, right? Like once I started to realize it, was like, oh yeah, that's what drove me to act like a crazy person through high school and college and be constantly getting in trouble, as I was in this incredibly broken type of way, just trying to prove that I was enough. So I'm going to put a timer up here for 2 minutes. And once you have found one of these emotions, go ahead and put in the chat like found one or decided on one or just done. But something to let me know you've at least got it started on recognizing one of the dominating negative emotions that's been causing this negativity to fire off in your head and in your emotions. So we'll do a timer for 2 minutes. I'm sorry. Yeah, let's do 2 minutes. Nice, Amy. It's good. It was an easy one to recognize. Quick. All right, nice. Okay, this is maybe easier for everybody to recognize than I was thinking. Yep, and at the same time, it can be hard to pick just one. I know for a while it took me to really identify what's the dominant one. Obviously, we have lots of emotions. We have more than just one emotion. But I want us to identify, at least for the sake of going through this, one. All right, it looks like most people have got this. Give us another 15, 13 seconds, we'll move on. Yeah, I think that's good to recognize, Valessa. Yeah, probably the feeling of inadequacy is something that a lot of us deal with. And we just don't realize that other people deal with it. And it's like, now talking to other family members more as an adult, it's like, okay, Jason ran wild in high school and college because of this feeling of inadequacy. But it's like, I know other people who they didn't feel like they were enough, so they just completely clammed up, right? They wouldn't talk to anybody because they thought if they talked to anybody, people wouldn't like them. And it's like, right? It's same wound, just handled in a very different way. So now that we've identified this, I want us to recognize, what does this feeling lead you to do? When I feel inadequate, what are some of the things I go do? Like, I want to be able to stop myself from just falling victim or falling into the hamster wheel of just letting this emotion play out in my life, right? When I feel this way, what are some of the things I do? Like, I know back then when I was feeling inadequate, I would constantly be checking my sales and my bank account. I'd be tinkering with my ads way more than I should. What other emotions does it trigger? How does it feel in your body? Just kind of think about that for a minute. That way we can recognize it when it starts to come up. Do you feel it in your chest? Do you feel it in your hands? Does it feel warm? Does it feel cold? What do I use to numb it? Maybe when, if I felt inadequate, maybe I would talk about how many planners I sold, whether they were profitable sales at the time or not. I just wanted to talk about it because that would try and numb that I felt like I was failing inside. Or maybe I wanted to bad talk other people, gossip, procrastinate. I wanted to go buy things, drink alcohol. What are some different things you could use to numb this feeling? How has it affected your life's decisions? I'm going to give you some fill in the blanks down here of Most of my life, I felt blank, so I've tried extra hard to blank. Okay, I fear blank because then blank, right? Like I fear, going back to my inadequacy example of like, I fear having a bad day of sales because then it would be proof that I'm clearly not smart enough to be doing this. Or I don't want anyone to know that blank, so I blank. Uh, just some things to hopefully help trigger to help you recognize some of the loops that we have in our head. And also as you're pulling this negative stuff out of our head, I want you to just pull it out. It doesn't mean it's true, right? If it's floating around in our head, it doesn't mean it's true. It's like if right now there's these negative thoughts in our head, like, I don't want anyone to know that I'm a failure. So I always talk about the things I've accomplished. That doesn't mean you're actually a failure. It's just like if that's a thought that's going through your head, we need to pull it out, right? I'd rather pull it out where I can see it on a piece of paper and recognize it for what it is. It's just like a limiting belief and it's a lie, rather than it staying in my head where I just am easy to react to it. Okay, so just because we're pulling this negative stuff out, it is not true. We're just pulling it out because it's up here, it's up in our head. So I'm going to do another timer for, let's see what I have up here, 3 minutes. Let's see how that is on time and just try and recognize, what does this negative emotion lead you to do? And just like before, once you're done, go ahead and put done in the chat. And yes, that's a good thing to recognize. We're trying to solve problems with buying things. Well, that's a good one to recognize. You just dive into social media. Yep. All right. Is most everybody done? Could we use more time? It's like done, done, done. Looks like we're doing pretty good here. And again, you can always come back to these afterwards. If you want to screenshot it, come back to it. Obviously, this will also be recorded in your training area, so you can access these slides from watching the recording there. But moving on, I want to just kind of reiterate how this continues to affect our life. So these feelings that we're addicted to, they were created from past experiences, right? These past experiences created this feeling of inadequacy or whatever it is that you have. And then our feelings create our thoughts, right? There's the direct relationship with our feelings and our thoughts then dictate our actions and our results that we get. Remember on the very first slide, we talked about how uh, kind of this slide, this relationship of we have our targets, we take actions towards our targets, right? It'd be illogical to think we can take the same actions we've always taken and all of a sudden hit new targets, right? But underneath our actions is you. And just the same way that it would be illogical to think you can hit new targets taking the same actions, it's illogical to think that we can go take next level actions if we don't change to the next level version of us, right? And if we are currently trapped in this feeling that was formed by the past, well, then the type of thoughts we're creating are also formed from the past. And what ends up happening is we just create more of the past, right? We just create more of the same because this root underlying feeling is just creating more of the same types of thoughts that are, if I feel inadequate, it creates the same types of thoughts. And if I have the same type of inadequate thoughts, I'm stuck at a certain level of actions and I'm going to get tapped out on the type of targets I can really hit to. So if we want to be able to make it to the next level or to get out of this, we need to create new feelings that rather than these feelings coming from the past, we need to have new feelings created from where we want to be, our dreams, right? This is why we're dreaming every single day and why we're doing these visualizations is when you guys, I'm sure you experience, or hopefully you experience when we do these visualizations here on these workshops, that you feel different. And hopefully when you're taking time to dream every single day, you feel different. You feel lighter, you feel freer. And it's like when we can create those feelings on a regular basis, then we can use those to form better habitual ways of feelings and new addictions to the feeling of feeling like that new version of me. And then if I have those are going to create thoughts and actions that ultimately lead me there rather than these feelings that lead me to creating just more of the past. Does that kind of make sense? Hopefully. So now that we've started to recognize what we look like when we are stuck in this loop of these negative emotions, I want us to compare that to how would we rather feel? What would we rather be experiencing? What would you rather feel if that negative, or what would you feel if that negative emotion was gone? Right? If somebody just somehow plucked this feeling of inadequacy out of me and just vanished it, right? What would I feel like? What type of things would I be doing? Or if somebody came and plucked just this feeling of fear or this constant feeling of anger out of you and just removed it, what would you be like then? What new beliefs would you have about yourself? What type of thoughts would you have about yourself? How would you behave? How would you talk to others? What actions would you take? What goals would you start pursuing? How would you feel about yourself? So I want us to start to identify, right? We've already recognized here's the old me that's rooted in these beliefs from the past or these feelings from the past. What does the new me look like? So I'm going to do another timer for 3 minutes so you can start to create this vision of the new you that you're working on creating. What would you look like if that emotion was gone? And similar to before, once you've answered these here, go ahead and put done in the chat. All right, go ahead and put done in the chat. It looks like a few of you guys are done. We need some more time. I can put some more time up here. But I think one of the things that probably I've realized is it's like rather than trying to, have this underlying feeling of inadequacy that I'm always trying to prove, right, that I'm not inadequate, when you just accept that you are enough, you can just let that radiate out, right? Rather than trying to like grasp and pull in this adequacy that you so desperately want. It's like, it's already here. Just let it radiate out. I think I used to fear that if I truly believed I was enough, that I would just stop working altogether. Like, oh, if I believed I was enough, like why would I work? Right. And it wasn't until after I, started doing this deep inner work, it's like if all of my work is rooted from this feeling of inadequacy, it's a terrible way to live. And once you start to accept that you are enough, you do want to work. You want to go help people. You want to go serve people in a certain way. And it's such a healthy relationship to, I want to go do this. Not like I need to do this because otherwise people are going to see that I'm enough. So I don't know if other people could relate to it, but I know when I imagine, this new me, he definitely is acting from a place of love. He isn't just completely stagnant because he feels completely satisfied. So let's keep on moving on here. And let's do a little guided visualization to just kind of help you wrap up all the different things we have covered from the day. So what I'm going to have you do is go ahead and sit back in your chair and close your eyes. Close your eyes. Let's take a deep breath in. Let it out. Take another deep breath in. Let it out. And just feel yourself relax. And I want you to bring to your attention and bring into your imagination this old you that you want to stop being, the version of you who has been addicted to this negative emotion. And I want you to imagine that you're out of your body and you're just observing this, this version of you who has this negative emotion. I want you to just, as if you were standing outside your body watching you, I want you to see this self experiencing that negative emotion. What are they doing? Are they binge shopping on Amazon? Are they scrolling on social media? Are they checking their bank account balance? Are they just crazy, overwhelmed, stressed, busy at work? What type of feelings do they have? Are they feeling angry, insecure? And as you see this version of yourself and you recognize this feeling that this version of you experiences, I want you to recognize, where do you feel that in your body? Do they feel it in their chest? Is it in their head? And wherever it is, I want you to imagine that on that location of your body, there is a little door or a little lid that you can open up, right? Like if it's on your head, imagine that there's somehow a lid at the top of your head that you can just flap open. And I want you to imagine that you pull this negative emotion out of your body and you put it in a box that's in front of you on the ground. Put it in this box. Maybe this emotion is heavy. Maybe it's a solid black cube. Maybe it's a dark storm cloud, some other shape. And I want you to put it in this box that's on the floor in front of you. And then close the little door back up on yourself. And now that this emotion is in the box in front of you, I want you to imagine that you give it a little kick with your foot. Give the box a little kick. And right when your foot hits the box just disappears. It's completely gone. And I want you to let yourself experience what it would feel like to just have this negative emotion gone. How would you breathe with this just removed from you? It's gone and disappeared. How do you feel? Do you feel lighter? I want you to envision this version of yourself that no longer has this emotion. What would you do? What are some of the new thoughts that you would start to think, knowing that you are whole, knowing that you are already enough, and feeling it? Feeling what it would be like to just love and accept yourself unconditionally, exactly the way you are. There's nothing you need to do or accomplish or achieve or prove to others to make it real. You're already enough. How would you act if you just let this version of yourself play out and go follow dreams or goals that they have? What would they start doing? How would they serve others? How would they love others? How would they now feel about themselves? And what new beliefs would you have about yourself? Once you have a good vision of what this would look like, what this would feel like, I want you to experience this new feeling throughout your body right now. I want you to feel it in all the different parts of your body and all the different cells as they learn and memorize this new feeling. Once you feel and experience your whole body just experiencing this new feeling of what it would be like to be this new you, I want you to feel yourself in alignment. You're just on this trajectory of living out of a place of this new you all year long. That you've lived in this feeling. And then I'm going to count to 3. And once we get to 3, we're going to return back to our Zoom call. And I want you to know that you're on this trajectory. You are enough. This is now part of you, how you think, how you feel, and how you act going forward. 1, 2, 3. Let's come on back, you guys. All right. So hopefully you were able to experience like an actual feeling of what it would be like to be this old you that you want to stop being, and how it feels to be free from that. This new you, probably lighter, freer. And why I think this is really important to create this mental movie, right? Of like, this is what this old me, broken me looks like, right? Here's Jason trying his best to party or to just prove to everybody he's great. And then here's this free Jason who's just acting out of a place of love or service because he's already accepted himself. And it's really important because I want us to be able to recognize when we're starting to act like that old version of us that we want to stop being. Right? If I start to notice that I'm constantly checking my sales like 4 times an hour or a bunch of times throughout the day, it's like, okay, I know that I'm falling back into the same trap, right? And I can stop it where it is rather than just letting it run wild within my life. So we can start to notice that. And I think it's really also helpful to when we're making decisions. And this is something as you start to maybe practice these types of things more, it can help me make decisions, right? It's like, okay, if I make this big change to my business and I envision myself 6 months from now after I've done it, does that feel heavy or does it feel light, right? Does it feel like how the feeling that I'm after, or does it feel like, oh, I'm just there still trying to prove to myself that I'm good, right? And it can help us guide us in the trajectory that we're going on. So hopefully, did you guys learn some new things about yourself today? Whether it was we uncovered some bad things, maybe we helped you clarify this new version of you that you really want to become, but we're able to recognize some new things about yourself. So what I'd like you to do is go ahead and make a post in the Facebook group. let everybody know what stood out to you most from this workshop. Not everyone was able to make it here today, but I want to also give them some inspiration to watch this because I know it can be really powerful for them. And next week, I'm going to be on a cruise with my wife, so I will not be working or have cell phone service. All of the prompts and stuff will still be posted, but there will just be a recorded session for next week that will be added into the training area. So that'll be added in there. So next Thursday, just watch it. But then the final workshop will be on February 8th as we wrap this all up. So you guys, hope this was helpful. Let's keep going on this journey together. Thank you. Yes, we're very excited for the cruise. But you guys have a great day. I'll get this added to our training area here sometime tomorrow so that you can rewatch it too if you want. I know somebody asked about the slides. You can rewatch it there. And Lori, I'm glad Santa had good taste in planters and planners and brought you some new ones. Thanks, guys. Great having you on here. Bye.